their gold reserves. That is all those proceeds are just in exchange to protect the junta regime.
He talked about Burkina Faso's gold, saying that we use it to protect ourselves and all that. First of all, it's Burkina Faso's gold, it's not his gold. That's the first thing. What business is it of his? It's none of his business. It's Burkina Faso, it's Burkina Faso's gold, it doesn't concern him. Second thing, he's lying. Because Burkina Faso never had any gold reserves until we came along. We are the ones who started setting aside gold for the treasury of Burkina Faso. Otherwise, there wasn't a single gram of gold reserves in Burkina. That means he's a liar again. Another thing, when he says we use it to protect ourselves and all that, we are free. If the people have decided that we should govern them, we have a duty to protect ourselves. So we are free. What business is it of his? And the part that hurt me the most, not because he's a general or because he's American or anything like that, but because he's black. It really hurts to see a black man being used to fight against another black man. And this didn't start just now. It has to stop. You see, it's very dangerous. Even Libya, who destroyed Libya? Once again, they used a black man. In movies back in the day, in America, black people always played the bad guy. But we know that's just in the movies. But why do black people have to keep playing the bad guy? I think that if he heard this interview, he should look at himself in the mirror, feel ashamed.
Your Excellency, welcome to Sputnik Africa. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. It is a great honor for our agency.
Thank you.
Your Excellency, your visit is taking place as part of the celebrations for the 80th anniversary of Russia's victory in the Great Patriotic War. Yesterday you attended the parade on Red Square. What are your impressions of this experience? In your opinion, how significant were the celebrations? Perhaps which equipment impressed you the most?
Thank you very much. As you mentioned, the context is indeed the celebration of Russia's victory in the Great Patriotic, as it is called. We were very impressed by the parade because it began with the entire motorized section featuring vehicles, starting with the legendary T-34 tank that contributed to the victory, all the way to today's modern vehicles like the T-90 and of course other types of missiles that have been developed. It made a big impression on us. It taught us many lessons and allowed us to see how Russia has evolved technologically in the military field from that great up to today.
All right. Mr. President, why was it important for you to accept President Putin's invitation and join Russia in these celebrations?
It's important to me for several reasons. First of all, because it is an invitation from a friendly country. Russia and Burkina Faso are now working closely together. Our cooperation is quite strategic, which means we must come and take part alongside the Russian people. Our ancestors also contributed to the liberation of Europe against Nazism, which means that we share a common history in celebrating this victory. That is very important. Another thing is that today, Russia and Burkina Faso are fighting the same battle. We have a world that I would describe as unilateral. We want a multipolar world. We want a world that is free, independent, a world of peace, where nations do not dictate to other nations what they should do and how they should be. So Russia is actively engaged in this struggle, which is also a fight for denazification, if I may say so. We too are engaged in this same kind of struggle against imperialism, which seeks to enslave us, which wants to keep us in bondage. We share the same perspectives. It was very symbolic for us to come and participate alongside the Russian people in this historic election.
Notably, the Soviet people played a major role in defeating Nazism, and the people of Burkina Faso, as you rightly point out, are now making efforts to fight and eradicate terrorism. Do you see any similarities between our two peoples? How does this manifest itself more concretely?
Yes. I have learned many lessons from this celebration, and there are many similarities in the struggle we are currently waging. Look at the Soviet people who sacrificed nearly 27 million lives to achieve this victory. At one point, they could have said, "That's enough," signed the armistice, and given up. But courage, tenacity, and resilience made them continue the fighting, and they eventually won. Burkina Faso has been fighting against terrorism for 10 years. Now, it's not that there haven't been any deaths. There have been many deaths from that time until today. But we do not give up, because we know that we will achieve victory, and we continue this fight. So there is this mindset that unites us, and that's also something very interesting in these moments.
And how do you analyze the influence of the Soviet victory in the Second World War on the process of decolonization in Africa? What would have happened if we tried to imagine, to Africa if Nazism had won?
That contributed a lot, I can say. Now, if Nazism had won, I can't really imagine, but I try to, you know. People didn't respect black people. Even today, it still goes on. Black people have always been labeled as subhuman. Some actually saw us as animals. You've heard the stories about colonization, about slavery. Black people were tortured, displayed in cages like wild animals in Europe and all that. Black people were castrated to prevent them from even having offspring. Black people were treated as less than animals. You know that in Congo, they considered cardboard to be worth more than black skin. They preferred to dry rubber on black people's skin rather than pay for cardboard to dry the rubber. Black people have suffered a lot. So slavery for centuries and centuries, colonization. And this war, you see, they came and took our ancestors without their consent, sent them to the slaughter on the front lines. And when they returned, you've heard what happened in Senegal. When they tried to claim their money, they were killed. That is to say, they do not consider black people, and yet they went to fight alongside the so-called allies who treated them like that. But imagine if Nazism had won. It would have been a disaster. So that's why I say it was a fight that had to be fought. It was utter madness in the world. It was a fight that had to be fought, and Africa took part. And today we can say thank you because the people who made the greatest sacrifice were the Soviet people. No one lost as many men. No one experienced as much destruction during the war as the Soviet people. So we are grateful, and I think it was necessary for the world to be as it is today, and for Africa to be able to hope to move forward as well.
Thank you very much for your answer. Mr. President, you recently declared that Burkina Faso will be the graveyard of terrorism. Are you setting concrete deadlines to completely defeat it? And how do you see Russia's future assistance regarding this, one of the main pillars of the Russia-Burkina Faso partnership?
I said that because in Burkina Faso we are working so that today there are many being recruited to come and Burkina Faso. This is not terrorism. I don't even know how to describe it. It's criminality. These are have been armed by imperialists to destabilize us, to keep us in a state of permanent and to exploit us. And so, as I said, we are working to make Burkina Faso the graveyard of terrorism. When someone is recruited to come and fight in Burkina, they should rather prefer to commit suicide. And that will happen. Because they are being equipped, trained, and given technology, these criminals, but we are constantly adapting. Right now, we are in a rather unique phase. They have acquired new technologies, new techniques, and everything, thanks to the support of those imperialists. Now that we are in the process, we have studied the situation, and we are going to respond to all of this immediately. So you will see, terrorism will come to an end. I don't want to set a deadline, but terrorism will end, and very soon, as quickly as we possibly can. And from Russia, all we are really asking for is mainly intellectual support. That's it. To help provide intellectual training for the development of our military industry, which we need to advance, and to help train young people in everything we can develop to confront. That's the part that interests us the most.
And more specifically, what materials or perhaps what equipment are you most interested in?
First of all, I want to say thank you, because Russia is one of those rare countries in the world that has taken military equipment and come to give it to us to fight this war. That is significant. Apart from Russia and China, there isn't no one else. In fact, it's even worse elsewhere. Sometimes we want to pay, but they refuse to sell to us. But now they've understood that we are. Russia is also conducting its special operation. We know it's not easy, but even so, if they have managed to provide equipment and come to give it to Burkina Faso, I think that's already very important. But as I said, Russia is helping to train us. For everything we purchase, Russian soldiers train Burkinabe soldiers on how to use this equipment and all that. But we want to continue developing our own military industry with the support of Russia, which is, I would say, far ahead of the rest of the world when it comes to weaponry. So, we need to have this close collaboration so that we can make progress in our war.
Thank you very much. So, this past year has been marked by major changes for the Sahel and for each of the AS countries in particular, such as, for example, the definitive break with ECOWAS and also the adoption of their own symbols like the common flag. In this context, how would you describe Burkina Faso before and after? And how do you assess the alliance of Sahel states as a format for regional cooperation? Are there any plans for expansion? Probably.
Yes. To understand the yes vote today, just look at African youth. I think that African youth are hopeful that this is a model of unity. And for us, the leaders of the AES, it puts pressure on us, and we have to succeed, because Africa now needs to unite. We were in an organization that was supposed to be a relationship based on solidarity, cooperation, mutual assistance, and all that. But you can't be in an organization where you call each other brothers, and then at some point they cut off the electricity so that patients die in hospitals. The economy comes to a halt, and banks are closed, so you can't access anything. Your money transfers to buy basic necessities, medicine, and so on. These were blocked for a certain Sahelian people. They even formed an army to come and fight against Sahelian peoples. While terrorism has been raging for decades, they have been incapable of sending a single soldier to help fight it. These are not brothers. We must not fool ourselves. And this is not about the people, it's about the leaders. Otherwise, when you look at the people, but even in these ECOWAS countries, all the people support and then understand the momentum of the AES. So that reassures us and encourages us to organize ourselves to become a model so that in the future it can expand. But in order to expand, we need to establish strong foundations. And that's exactly what we are doing right now. So that's more or less what led us to withdraw and to organize ourselves in order to relaunch.
Mr. President, for many people in Africa, you are more than just the president of a country. You are seen as the embodiment of a new Pan-Africanism. Why does Africa today, in particular, need, if I may say so, a new Thomas Sankara? How does it feel to bear all this responsibility at only 37 years old?
Age isn't important, Mom, but I can say it's a lot of pressure. It's pressure, you can't let it go into your head or become delusional about greatness. It's pressure. For me, it's a message that the youth are sending me, and that puts even more pressure on me. If I used to be able to sleep 2 hours, now I've cut my sleep down to 1 hour, and if I have to stop sleeping altogether, then I just won't sleep anymore. Because they've surely seen something we're doing that, in their view, could allow Africa to make its mark on the world, getting out of this situation. For us, it encourages us, it motivates us all to keep. That's why I say it's a pressure. It is a very heavy responsibility. And I can promise that all we can do is not to betray, to continue on our path of Pan-African struggle, hoping that it will inspire all African youth, and that the Pan-Africanism we so deeply wish for can become a reality. Because Africa has suffered a lot. It's time for us to unite, to work, and to develop ourselves. Just as Africans go elsewhere to discover the world of ideas and everything it has to offer, in Africa it is possible. It is possible, so this is our mission, and we will take responsibility for it.
Mr. President, more and more African countries are asserting their sovereignty and demanding the withdrawal of Western troops from their soil. Recently, for example, Chad, Senegal, and Côte d'Ivoire have made similar requests. In your opinion, where did the West go wrong in its relations with the African continent?
What I know is our own situation. We were at war, we lived alongside Western troops and everything that came with it. We saw this and decided to part ways with those troops because it did not align with our struggle. On the contrary, it actually made the problem worse. As for the other countries that separated, I can't comment because they made their own decisions to part ways. But afterwards, President Macron said that he was the one who told them to find a solution and all that. I can't get involved in that debate. They know the truth, but one thing is certain. You can't talk about sovereignty while having a foreign army on your soil telling you what to do. The economy, education, the entire development of a country is based on its military. So every country should develop its own army, be sovereign and independent. That's what we are doing right now. When I look at the case of Burkina, these foreign armies were present and that contributed to the destruction of the Burkinabe army. There was no more recruitment. They were the ones who decided how many people could be recruited. There was no more equipment, nothing. Even back in 1985 under Sankara, we were better equipped than 10 or 20 years later. And in the end, came in. When arrived, we didn't have an army. We are still suffering from it today. It's in the midst of that we are trying to build an army. So it's normal that it takes some time. We are suffering, but we have to create an army. And when we come out of we must come out stronger. That's what I'm saying. When I look at the statistics of the Soviet army, the number of men they lost, but when they came out of the war, they emerged much stronger. And today, no army has the equipment that the Russian army has. So we too must learn from our or come out of the to be very strong. Sovereignty begins with the army. Once you have a strong army, all the other sectors can easily develop. That's what I can say. That's what pushed Burkina, in any case, to separate itself and its armies.
All right. Another topic that persists and is important is the Ukrainian issue. Russia declares itself ready to negotiate without preconditions, while Ukraine constantly imposes constraints. Moreover, Kiev supports terrorists in the Sahel. In your opinion, who does not want peace for our two countries?
I think that even before now, it was President Erdogan of Turkey who managed to create a framework for dialogue. And I believe that the two presidents met at that time. It was only at the beginning of the operation. All of us hoped that it would lead somewhere, that the weapons would fall silent, and that everyone would return to good intentions. But it was the came and told the Ukrainian president not to accept. We followed all that. And in the end, what did it lead to? Well, I think all of this falls under manipulation. I believe they were manipulated. Otherwise, the Ukrainian and Russian peoples, they were the Soviet Union, they are brothers. How is it that hatred, Russophobia, could be cultivated within this population? The war did not start in 2022. It began in 2014. This is also a reality that many people perhaps don't know, or that we refuse to acknowledge, that the war started in 2014. And today, people are surprised to see that others might be putting the blame on Russia and all that. When civilians, Russian speakers, were being bombed in 2014, who spoke up? There are images that still exist. People were locked in houses and burned. There are images out there, but action should have been taken all this time. They were manipulated. And today, that's the reality. You see, all the aid we were giving, it wasn't really aid. They were told to hand over their minerals. In reality, Ukraine no longer belongs to the Ukrainians. They were manipulated, and they end up as the losers. All sectors will be managed by those who led them into and the hope was to weaken Russia. But Russia will come out of even stronger. So I think they need to understand this and come back to their senses in order to negotiate and achieve peace. Because they have declared that they support the you have all followed this. And we can also see on the ground that they are indeed supporting. This is not a just war. I think they are completely mistaken. They need to come back to their senses. In any case, they can support them, but we will win. So if they still haven't understood until now that this whole maneuver was meant to bring them down and seize their critical minerals, and by seizing their critical minerals, they can continue. So that's what I can say about the situation. Every people must understand that they need to avoid being manipulated and getting into a very complicated situation. That's more or less what I can say.
Thank you very much for that answer. Mr. President, what do you think of the Sputnik news agency and its role in the African media landscape? What is it about this content that attracts African listeners? And in your opinion, what is the main difference compared to mainstream media?
The press is very important. Communication, it's through the press that people's minds are shaped. So you already play a very important role by bringing out a part of the truth about history and the present. You must continue in this direction to awaken people's awareness. Because you see, all this Western press and so on have contributed to putting the African people's consciousness to sleep. It's their narrative that gets through and all that. We've come to realize that often they invent big lies just to divide people, to allow their policies to operate and do whatever they want, to prepare the ground and so on. So you need to do the opposite of what they do. That is, contribute to awakening people's awareness, and you have an important role to play, especially in Africa itself, so that Africans understand their own history, wake up and stop believing the media outlets. You see, it doesn't suit them. When you tell them the truth, they shut down the media. And here, when a media outlet is shut down, it becomes a whole issue. And what's unfortunate is to even see Africans supporting this. Over there, they shut down media outlets whenever they want, or whenever it doesn't please them. Those same people don't say a word. But when we shut down media outlets, you see so-called intellectual Africans on TV panels. We don't know what they've taken, but it's dangerous. So you have a very important role to play, and so do all the media, in awakening the consciousness of Africans. I say that we are here so that young people wake up. We're not here with the mindset of looking for a handout or something. We want to build Africa. And if young people aren't awakened, they'll be lulled to sleep. These Western media sing our praises, saying we're doing well, we're doing well. But no, that's not true. We want it to be known when things aren't going well, so that others can step in and take over. But when they also lie and say that things aren't going well, we'll prove the opposite. So keep communicating and helping to raise awareness in Africa.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, following the statements made by the AFRICOM commander before the US Senate, your government responded firmly, denouncing unfounded accusations regarding Burkina Faso's sovereign choices. What is your response to that specifically, to those, especially in Washington, who continue to question the legitimacy of your current partnerships, particularly with Russia? And how do you intend to defend the image of Burkina Faso on the international stage in the face of this kind of rhetoric?
In any case, we are free to establish relations with whomever we choose. That is what independence means. So on this point, they can continue to think whatever they want. We will go wherever we want, as long as this partnership can, in any case, be mutually beneficial for each party. As for those remarks, as you mentioned, we have protested through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That's one thing. But I don't know what happened with that general. There is still an issue here. And I would perhaps like him to admit his mistake, if he was sent, and to understand that this was not the right mission. If he was misled, he should say so publicly, or otherwise admit before the Senate that he was mistaken. Or also, if it was done with bad intentions, Well, we will confront him as we should, because everything he said is a lie. And it's really shameful to see an adult lie, to see an adult, a general officer of a great army, lie. It's very serious. First of all, he talked about Burkina Faso's gold, saying that we use it to protect ourselves and all that. First of all, it's Burkina Faso's gold, it's not his gold. That's the first thing. What business is it of his? It's none of his business. It's Burkina Faso, it's Burkina Faso's gold, it doesn't concern him. Second thing, he's lying. Because Burkina Faso never had any gold reserves until we came along. We are the ones who started setting aside gold for the treasury of Burkina Faso. Otherwise, there wasn't a single gram of gold reserves in Burkina. That means he's a liar again. Another thing, when he says we use it to protect ourselves and all that, we are free. If the people have decided that we should govern them, we have a duty to protect ourselves. So we are free. What business is it of his? And the part that hurt me the most, not because he's a general or because he's American or anything like that, but because he's black. It really hurts to see a black man being used to fight against another black man. And this didn't start just now. It has to stop. You see, it's very dangerous. Even Libya, who destroyed Libya? Once again, they used a black man. In movies back in the day, in America, black people always played the bad guy. But we know that's just in the movies. But why do black people have to keep playing the bad guy? I think that if he heard this interview, he should look at himself in the mirror, feel ashamed, go out and come out and say, well, I was given a false report. I regret it. He must say it publicly. If it's a false report, it was made, because it's possible. It's possible that a false report was made and that he comes out to say it. Because you saw, when I take another neighbor, again, as I say, between us, the Ivorian Minister of Defense, who goes around, goes to Turkey, meets the Turkish Minister of Defense and tells him not to sell us. Do you see how much that hurts? When it's a black person who behaves like that, it really hurts. Did we make a false report? Let him come out and deny it. If he was sent to create a problem in Burkina, as they are used to doing, well, we'll get ready. We'll be waiting for them. Because this has to stop now. The black race should not be used to fight against black people. Every time it's the same thing, it's always the same. And that's what we regret. And it really hurt us to see that it was a black person making those statements. It's true that they may try to make up for it through various channels. They're trying to make amends now that it was said publicly. It needs to be corrected publicly. That's how it is for us. We're no longer engaging in diplomatic hypocrisy, as we like to say. Saying things loudly and clearly, and then coming back later to say, no, apologizing, but for what? It needs to be said publicly. So I invite them to make amends, to say it publicly, because African youth have understood, black youth around the world have understood. This kind of manipulation doesn't work anymore. That's how it's always been, using false pretexts in hopes of achieving other goals. That doesn't work anymore. So it's unfortunate, but Burkina Faso remains true to its path. We will continue to develop ourselves. And he forgot to mention everything we are doing for Burkina Faso. What we are doing, no previous regime has accomplished. That's it, the socio-economic development of Burkina Faso. Who has done? We are building many health centers, fully equipped with medical devices, offering medical exams, and lowering the costs of medical tests. Which regime has done the same? No one. We are taking action in agriculture, plowing farmers' fields for free. Our production has increased and everything. Who has done that? No one. The army, we are creating a new army. And the Burkinabe army has never been as well staffed and equipped as it is now. Who has done that? No regime. When it comes to jobs, no regime has created as many jobs as we have. Industrialization. Maybe that's what bothers them, what they want to stop, and so they make up lies. In any case, I invite them to reconsider their position. That's what I can say. It was a big lie, and it's unfortunate.